Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the very first episode of the Southern Spectre podcast. I'm your host, Isaiah, and thank you for joining me. First, a little about myself. I was born and raised in a small South Carolina town, and as long as I can remember, I have always had an interest in the paranormal. Most folks usually have some sort of experience that catapults them knee-deep into the strange and unusual. But I cut my teeth on stories of red eyes and bloody bones, the lizard man of Skateboard Swamp, Lands in Light, and the likes thereof. I love reading just about anything, but my favorite is mystery, suspense, horror, and true accounts of the unexplained. Songs and stories have always been intertwined, for some reason or another. Maybe because both have a narrative to convey. As people, we grow and evolve through sharing and experience. I invite each of you to share your story, songs, experiences, or messages with me. If you email me at the Southern Spectre Podcast at gmail.com, I may share your content on the show. I look forward to hearing from you guys. The South itself is steeped in tales of the hereafter, with a history rich in culture, turmoil, violence, oppression, and resilience, shrouded in mystery and often soaked in blood. There's no wonder this region has more than its fair share of legends and folklore. Over the next few episodes, we'll take a road trip through the coast of South Carolina, traveling down through the Lowcountry with maybe the occasional detour here or there. So come, join me on this adventure throughout the South. Who knows where we may end up? Maybe together we'll discover what happens when the dark comes to light. This is the Southern Spectre Podcast. As the summer slowly comes to a close, it's the freedom of the season that I'll miss the most. Ice cream on a hot day, flip-flops and shorts, vacations to the beach with your toes in the sand. A beachy breeze with a hint of salt hangs in the air. If you add tequila and a lime, you've got yourself a recipe for total relaxation. The fall, however, brings with it its own pastimes. Cool, crisp, southern mornings that bring a nip in the air that only fall can deliver. Shorter days, longer nights, full harvest moons, hot coffee, and a slow burn book. The changing of the leaves, homemade apple pie with a lattice top and a huge dollop of whipped cream. A day trip to the mountains to pick a pumpkin for the perfect jack-o'-lantern with a jagged pirate smile. A trip to a local haunted house. Soon, every house in the neighborhood will bear its Halloween regalia. It's sweater weather with bonfires, oyster roasts, and my personal favorite, a well-told ghost story. Down here, time seems to come to a crawl, and you soon realize that in some areas, time has stopped altogether. This episode will be the first of many Southern ghost stories I'll be able to share with you. I hope you enjoy listening to these stories as much as I enjoyed them the first time I heard them. Over the next few episodes, I'd like to invite you on a little road trip through South Carolina's Lowcountry. We'll be discussing some of South Carolina's most famous haunts and maybe take a little detour here or there. Now, it's time to pull up a chair, settle in, and cozy up for the story of Alice Flagg of the Hermitage. Enjoy. We're going to begin our journey on the northern side of the South Carolina coast near Myrtle Beach and venture southbound. As we make our way heading south on Highway 17 along the South Carolina Atlantic coast, we'll soon find ourselves among golf courses, water parks, beachside resorts, seafood, and shopping outlets galore. We're, of course, traveling along the famous Grand Strand, Myrtle Beach. From Cherry Grove to Surfside Beach, you can experience all the food, fun, shagging, and sun you can handle. For those unfamiliar, the term shagging refers to the Carolina Shag, which is South Carolina's official state dance, and its birthplace would be right here beside the Atlantic Ocean, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. If we continue down this path, we'll soon come to the town of Murrells Inlet. Once known as a prominent fishing village, but has long since grown along with time as a popular tourist and retirement locale. This is, of course, where our first story takes place. This is the story of Alice Flagg. Our story begins here in Murrells Inlet in 1849, when Alice Flagg lived with her brother, Dr. Allard Flagg, and their mother in their home called the Hermitage. Alice, like the rest of her family, was born into a life of aristocracy and sophistication. Now Alice had met a young man while in town one day, and the pair eventually fell in love. Although the young man's true origin is unclear, it is believed that he was a lumberman who worked the local area. Of course, once Alice's mother and brother had gotten word of the two lovers, they forbid their relationship. After all, how could young Alice, a lady who comes from such grandeur, ever marry some common lumberman? However, Alice was persistent with the love she felt, and dismissed what her family had to say of the affair. One day, when her young suitor came to call on Alice, she was just about to leave with him in his carriage, when Alice's brother called out to them both. He would not allow Alice and her gentleman caller to travel beside one another in the carriage, so her brother insisted that the lumberman ride a horse instead, while he, her brother, rode inside the carriage with Alice. Alice was exhausted of her family, and she could no longer continue to live under the rule of her tyrannical kin. The lumberman soon asked Alice to be his bride, and she accepted with all her love. When her brother learned of this new development, he was furious. He forbid Alice to marry the young man, and told her to give the ring back. Alice agreed. However, she took the ring from her finger and tied it to a ribbon, where she wore it around her neck, concealing it beneath her attire. One day, Alice's mother discovered the ring around Alice's neck. Her mother hurled an arsenal of insults about Alice's fiancé, and with a salty tongue, cursed their love. Alice had enough. She was frail and tired of trying to change her family's mind. Finally, she gave in and ended her relationship with her true love, and agreed to leave Murrells Inlet for Charleston, where she would be enrolled in school there. After leaving her familiar surroundings, being alone in a new city, and enduring a broken heart soon became too much for Alice to bear. She soon began to complain of a dull throbbing pain on the left side of her head. She became restless and had taken ill, so the school sent word to her family that she should be taken back home to Murrells Inlet. Once her brother heard the news, he raced toward Charleston in his carriage, which was a difficult 4-day ride. When he finally arrived, he discovered Alice was lethargic and weak. She could barely nod her head. Her strength and endurance was all but gone from her body. He made his way with her to the carriage and raced home as fast as he could go. The carriage rocked and rolled, this way and that, along the rough and rocky roads they traveled, which did not fare well for Alice's condition. Shortly after making it home, poor Alice collapsed into a coma and died. Alice was prepared to be buried in her favorite dress, but her brother had taken her engagement ring away. Alice was buried at All Saints Church, where a simple slab of marble engraved with just one word, Alice, was placed over her burial mound. Some folks have claimed to have seen Alice's ghost in Murrells Inlet at the Hermitage and in the graveyard at All Saints Church. Legend says Alice is always searching for her lost ring, and she died of a broken heart. It's said that if you stand at the bottom right-hand corner of Alice's grave and walk around 13 times counterclockwise, finally stopping by the A in Alice, that you'll be granted a wish to come true. Some folks come and leave small tokens or money on her gravesite to show their respect. Maybe one day Alice will be reunited with her true love, and she'll finally be at peace. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we continue our journey down the South Carolina coast, and leaving Alice and the Hermitage in our rear view, we travel slightly further south until we reach Pawleys Island. Pawleys Island is another small coastal town on an island of the same name. Accessible by 2 causeways, the island is less than 4 miles long and surrounded by salt marsh, beaches, wetlands, and sand dunes. It's located 70 miles north of Charleston and 25 miles south of Myrtle Beach. and was first settled in the 1700s by the plantation owners on the nearby rivers. The island is named after Percival Pauly, who was the first to settle and develop a plantation on the Waccamaw River. Around here, as summer draws to an end and hurricane season seems to ramp up, most southern residents await word on hurricanes, tropical storms, or other disturbances out over the Atlantic. Meteorologists await reports from hurricane hunters and national weather centers. The residents of Pawleys Island, however, keep an ear to the ground for a word of a different kind of indicator: the gray man of Pawleys Island. They wait, sit, and watch for the gray man to make an appearance before the storm arrives, as he is known to be a warning to those that see him. Most take heed and travel further inland. In most cases, those that see him are spared their lives, as well as their homes. The gray man has become somewhat of an ethereal forecaster of how severe the impending storm is likely to be. Now, it wasn't until I started doing research about this famous specter that I learned that apparently the gray man is not solely found on Pawleys Island, but he has also been seen in Hatteras, North Carolina as well. Are the two specters one and the same, or are these two different lost souls bound to protect their coastal lands until world's end? Speculators seem to believe that the gray man could potentially be Percival Pauly himself, come back to warn the barrier island he settled so many years ago. Further theories have even gone as far as to suggest it could be the infamous pirate Edward Teach, Blackbeard, bound for all eternity to pay for his crimes against humanity, and to protect those that may be in danger of the approaching storm. The most common origin story of the gray man is this. In 1822, a young man was traveling from Charleston to Pawleys Island to see his betrothed. Maybe it was a shortcut taken, or something spooked his horse. Whatever the circumstances, the young man and his horse had managed to become stuck in mud-like quicksand, where they unfortunately met their demise. When the young man's beloved heard the horrible news of his death, she took to the beach on Pawleys Island to mourn the loss of her future husband. One night, she encountered a man dressed all in gray. He was standing, watching the tide rise and fall. When he turned to her, she knew immediately it was her beloved come back from death itself. He warned her that she and her family were in grave danger, and they needed to leave the island at once. Her family learned of this and made their way further inland. Not long after they left the coast, an incredible storm devastated the island, and her family was spared. When they returned to their island home, they were astonished at the amount of destruction and all the homes taken by the storm. All homes, in fact, except for theirs. Over the last 200 years, 5 major hurricanes have hit the coastline at Pawleys Island, and according to legend, the gray man has shown himself before each one. Now, I had a theory building during my research, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I was onto something. Although there's no supporting evidence, I'd like to pose the question: what if the gray man was Alice Flagg's fiancé? Just something to ponder over. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Join me next time as we continue our road trip down to the south. We'll continue along the coastal highway, heading toward Charleston and then on to Edisto Island. And remember, don't let the boo hag get you.